Welcome to the EdjSports Coach Rankings Show. Katie George here. Be sure to follow EdjSports on all social media platforms. And if you're watching here on YouTube, be sure to give us a like and subscribe for all betting content and our coach ranking shows that unveil each week. Joined, as always, by Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst here at EdjSports. We have finally made it to Super Bowl 56. It's right around the corner. Can you remember a time that we have had such great games leading up that all seemed to go down to the wire?
No, especially after the wild card weekend where we had 4 of the 6 games that were just complete blowouts, boring games. But to see the divisional round with that awesome, the 2 Saturday games that were ended on a field goal. Unfortunately, my Packers lost one of those. But the next day to see the Buccaneers come back before the Rams finally won that one, and then the awesome Chiefs-Bills game, and then now the Bengals just keep on rolling, finding ways to win, and the big comeback against the Chiefs. Really awesome to see them, with us being here in Louisville and having grown up here, a ton of Bengals fans for friends, so it's cool to see that for them. Really happy for them. But really, for me, it was kind of the ideal matchup coming down to last weekend of Bengals-Rams were the 2 teams. I didn't really care if either one of them won. So it works out perfectly that they get to face each other, and I'm happy with either one.
I couldn't believe that after the Saturday and Sunday that we got 2 weekends ago that the football gods would grace us with even better games, and it seemed that we've been very, very lucky taking in all of these games, so hopefully Super Bowl 56 lives up to the hype.
Yeah, hopefully not a dud.
No, definitely not, right? So again, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube page and follow EdjSports on all social media platforms to get in on the conversation. And Ian, we've had a busy week, I would say, as 4 teams have now filled their coaching vacancies from the last time that we spoke. Giants have hired Brian Daboll, former Buffalo offensive coordinator. Broncos have hired Nathaniel Hackett, former Green Bay OC. I'm sorry about that. The Raiders have hired Josh McDaniels, former New England offensive coordinator. He just had his press conference. And then the Bears hired Matt Eberflus, former Indiana DC, who then brought in Luke Getsky, the former Green Bay pass coordinator and QB's coach. So a lot of moving parts there. Not a whole lot of data for these guys because McDaniels is the only one who has been a former head coach, and that was over 10 years ago. What are your thoughts on the hires, and would you consider any one of these the best of the group? For the best, I think Brian Daboll is kind of the obvious answer just based on what he's done the last 3 years in Josh Allen's development. Allen finished second, I think, in MVP voting last year. Kind of those first couple years really struggled with accuracy and really helped develop him and built an offense around him and his strengths. Not as much talent in New York as he has in Buffalo, but Daniel Jones was a first-round quarterback. He's shown some flashes. He's had, this will be, I think, his 3rd head coach in 4 years, his 4th offensive coordinator. So hopefully bring some stability there for Daniel Jones. But I think basically Daboll, what he's done in Buffalo, I think is good news for the Giants moving forward. Help Buffalo improve. They're scoring from 19.6 points per game in 2019 to 31.3 in 2020. They were top 3 again in 2021. So it's been really good. And then coaching under a guy like Sean McDermott, Buffalo was 10th in CCI in 2021. Again, that's our 4th down decision-making metric. 8th in 2020, 9th in 2019. So hopefully we can see Brian Daboll take some of that aggressiveness to the Giants there, and he'll finish pretty highly in our coach rankings, hopefully over the next few years. Again, the talent isn't as good, so it might bring them down a little bit as far as his EPI rankings go. But it'll be interesting to see, and I think he's probably the obvious answer for the best coach. What do you think of Josh McDaniels going out to Las Vegas? Yeah, he was it a couple years ago, was it the Colts job? I forget which one, where it was announced that he had the job and then backed out or whatever it was. Yeah. It was 11-17 in 2 years in Denver. Was fired after a videotaping scandal, which seems to potentially be a Patriots thing there. I would expect things to go better this time around with a different AFC West team. His last season in New England, Brady lost, or his last season in New England before going to Denver, Brady was lost for the season in Week 1. He led a Matt Castle offense to an 11-5 season. So did a really good job with them there. Inherits a pretty good playoff team in the Raiders, who kind of snuck in at the end, but really fought through a lot of adversity last year, and have some really good players on offense, have a pretty good team around them. So I think he kind of steps into a better situation than Brian Daboll does. Still a tough division, like we've talked about quite a few times. But New England, we know Belichick has been pretty conservative. 28th in CCI this year. He was 16th last year, 7th the year prior. But hopefully, he adopts a more aggressive approach, kind of like the old Bill Belichick versus the recent Bill Belichick. Now, when Denver hired Nathaniel Hackett, I think a lot of people, unproven coach. Hopefully he can come in here. obviously a ton of upside if he's able to bring Aaron Rodgers to Denver. What did you think of the hire there?
This one, I think there's a lot less known about him. Green Bay was 8th, 1st, and 2nd in offensive DVOA the last 3 years. They're top 2 the last 2 years, but you've got Aaron Rodgers. You have an offense that's already really good. Matt LaFleur, really good head coach. Definitely not taking anything away from Hackett. He's done well, but when he was in Jacksonville, he did lead them, that offense, to the AFC Championship game in 2017, but their DVOA really wasn't that good. They were 15th that year. In the year before that and the year after that, they were 27th and 30th. So really, hasn't had a whole lot of success, at least in those Jacksonville years, aside from the year that they were in the top half there and then having Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. But as you mentioned, Denver was rumored to have been a potential landing spot for Rodgers, so Hackett may be able to play a part in bringing him there. Would have to give up quite a bit, I imagine, for a trade since he is still under contract. But Green Bay, 8th in CCI in 2021, 3rd last year. Matt LaFleur won our EdjSports Coach of the Year, and then the year prior was 11th in 2019. So he's been very aggressive. So he's been in that kind of aggressive environment as far as 4th downs go.
But what a way to start your head coaching tenure if you're able to lure Aaron Rodgers away and have him come out to Denver. You would be a fan favorite in the Mile High area.
Even if it's not Aaron Rodgers, too, like that roster is pretty good so far. They've got some really good receivers, good running back, especially in the rookie Javonte Williams, a very good defense. Just even a quarterback. If it's not Aaron Rodgers, even kind of a mid-level quarterback, maybe a Russell Wilson. It seems like things maybe are getting a little bit better in Seattle with them, but you never know.
Garoppolo seems to be
Garoppolo
on
could
the
be there.
market
He wants to go to a winning environment, a team that wants to win, and Denver could just be a quarterback away. So.
Yeah. Without a doubt. So 5 openings remain: Houston, Jacksonville, Miami, Minnesota, and New Orleans, with the most recent news coming out that Sean Payton is retiring. Any of these openings stand out to you or seem better than others?
Yeah, when we first talked about this at the opening, or I guess at Black Monday when all these openings were there, I think Denver was one that I'd said was the best, just a tough division. Minnesota was another one we talked about, and on some of our other shows, being good because they have, the offensive environment there. Kirk Cousins had a really good year this year. That offense with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. The defense is there. It was a little bit better this year. They had a lot of injuries and a lot of bad luck last year. This year was better, kind of fell off a little bit at the end. But that's a good one. New Orleans could be a good one because some of the talent that they have there, but they have a really bad cap situation. I think they're projected to be $70 million over right now. So they've got a lot of work to do there. But the Vikings one, going back to that, Jim Harbaugh apparently interviewed with Minnesota yesterday, maybe today. I don't know if anyone really knows. According to Chris Ballas, I think is how you say it, of the Wolverine.com, the folks there at Michigan have started to change their plans with the belief that Harbaugh will take an NFL job. Some things that I read this morning said it's pretty much a done deal with the Vikings and that his interview, whenever it is just a formality. No one really knows at this point. But he did work with the new Minnesota GM in San Francisco. They had a couple of years that overlapped. Looks like he is the one wanting to bring Jim Harbaugh in. He just kind of has to convince some of the ownership. But as we know, he's had success in the NFL with San Francisco. Took them to 3 straight NFC championship games. And as I mentioned, Minnesota has a roster I think he can win quickly with.
Yeah, and they also have a running back named Dalvin Cook, so fits his MO. It will be so interesting to see what these guys do and what coaches go where moving forward. We'll obviously keep you up to date as we move closer to the Super Bowl. So I imagine some will be interesting, and we will have some good comments to make when the time comes.
He's decided to challenge his play. He has tossed down the red flag.
All right, Ian, now it is time to throw our challenge flags where we pick a coaching error from the week previous. Only 2 games to choose from, so not a whole lot of decisions to really pick apart, but we challenge the coach's decision. We'll explain why it was a bad call in terms of win probability maximization. Who are you throwing a challenge flag on this week?
Mine is going to be Sean McVay, and it's not necessarily for a 4th down decision, rather his challenge and timeout usage in that game, which was criticized by pretty much every single person watching the games. He used his first challenge on a 4th and 1 challenge that really never had a chance. Matt Stafford was short of the line of scrimmage. Didn't look like there was any chance that it was going to get overturned. No. Lost the challenge, lost the timeout. Used the timeout then to save a delay of game coming down at the end of the 3rd quarter. Had 1st and 10, I think it was at the 49ers, 40, 45-yard line. Chose to call a timeout to save the 5 yards, which has been shown to not be effective. Those timeouts are worth a lot more, especially late in the game. At this point, it saved them the 5 yards. They got 20 yards on the next play. can't predict that going forward, but still was a really bad decision to use that timeout there. And then the really bad one, the challenge and his last timeout. San Francisco had 3rd and 2, came up short, ended up being a 4th and 2. And he challenged that there was a fumble, which, again, never really looked like there was going to be a shot to win that challenge. Not only did he lose the challenge, lost his last timeout with 10 minutes still left in the game, trailing by 3, a very close game. But then Kyle Shanahan almost made this the worst challenge of all time. I'll kind of leave it there because I think your challenge flag is on Kyle Shanahan. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And it's on a play and decision that he was just absolutely crucified for. I remember when Sean McVay didn't try to save the delay of game, and I remember thinking, what is wrong with the play clock? Is there a play clock visible to these two quarterbacks? Because how many times do we see them make mistakes? And then, of course, you see the stadium pan, and it is massive. So I don't know what Jimmy Garoppolo, his problem was, and obviously I don't know what Matthew Stafford was dealing with. But I'm going to go with Kyle Shanahan, and I'm sure you probably know which play we're talking about. It was 4th and 2. They were leading 17-14, and they decided to punt. It was on the Los Angeles 45-yard line with 10 minutes left to go. They got a second chance to make a decision because McVay challenged the 3rd down play, so they had some time to discuss it over. Instead, they sent out the offense, not really ever going to run a play before taking the delay of game, and then they ended up punting. It was a 5% error in win probability. 44% required conversion rate, around 56% expected conversion rate. Twitter blew up. Everybody blew up. He obviously got asked about it post-game, and he had to answer for it because it was a bad decision.
Yeah, and we see that a lot, too, like not only from Shanahan, but we always talk about like how often does that actually work. I think I saw it at least once earlier in the year, but not a ton. So we always kind of joke around and say, it would be nice to see them go up and pretend like they're not going to do it, like they're just doing the fake one, and then have them snap it real quick because the defense, while they're ready, they're thinking, oh, they're not really going to run a play. Just they don't want to jump off sides, so they might not be as ready to kind of fire off the ball as they normally would be. But we see it way too often, especially in a situation like that at your opponent's 45-yard line. Like punting just doesn't really gain you that much in field position. It's not worth it in terms of maximizing win probability. So I'm right there with you on that for Kyle Shanahan.
I wonder if he's playing that decision over and over and over in his head as he'll watch the Rams and obviously the Bengals playing in the Super Bowl. We're not all about the bad here. We like to give credit where credit's due. So this is the gold whistle portion of our show. It goes to a coach that made a great call during the previous week. These will typically be under-the-radar decisions that miss out on our top 5, but still deserve some kind of recognition. Wasn't a whole lot of aggressive decision-making last week. So who would you want to give the golden whistle to?
Yeah, there was only one 4th down go. It was a Sean McVay, 4th and 1, 4th and less than 1. Pretty obvious one. We're not going to give him the golden whistle for that. But we're going to give it to both Zach Taylor and Sean McVay. Might be kind of a cop-out, but just giving them golden whistles for getting their teams to the Super Bowl. It's the ultimate goal for every team, every season. Heading into Week 1, every team has a chance, technically, or mathematically, maybe not realistically, but these two teams have weathered the storms throughout the season that they've had handed to them and made it to the Super Bowl. So they both get our golden whistles this week.
If anything, I think Zach Taylor deserves a slight edge because of where they were, not just last season, but the season before, and to be able to be in a Super Bowl in a 3rd season, quite the turnaround. So well done, sir. Lastly, with just one game left to play in the season, obviously we have just one head-to-head coaching matchup to look at. Zach Taylor will make his first Super Bowl as a head coach in only his 3rd season with the Bengals. He coached in Super Bowl 53 as the quarterback's coach for his counterpart, Sean McVay. So obviously there's that storyline to look at, but neither of these coaches have been particularly aggressive this season, but they have had their moments.
Yep. Zach Taylor's been better. He's 21st in CCI. Kind of low for really the way, if you've watched him, he's got a lot of some smaller decisions. He had some really good decisions that he's had throughout the year. 4th and 1 in Week 1 was his best against Minnesota at his own 48, only 40 seconds left in overtime. Instead of playing for a tie to start off the season, went for it, ended up getting a 37-yard completion. I think it was Joe Burrow to CJ Uzomah, who looks like, unfortunately, may not be able to play in the Super Bowl, but came up big for them there, set up the game-winning field goal. His worst call was that 4th and goal go against the Chiefs in Week 17, that there was a lot of controversy over, choosing to go versus take the field goal. Ended up working out for him as Cincinnati was able to draw a defensive penalty on Kansas City and win that game. Now his second and third worst were fourth and shorts just across midfield against Minnesota and Green Bay late in the fourth quarter of those games. So it's going to be interesting to see which approach he takes in this game, especially knowing who he's got on the other side in Sean McVay.
Well, Sean McVay is just a few spots behind him in CCI at 23rd. His best call came in Week 7 against Detroit. It was 4th and 1 at the Detroit 46-yard line. Late third quarter, only leading by 1, and it was an incomplete pass, but it won the game. McVay's top 10 goes are all 4th and 1s, but his top 3 errors are 4th and shorts near the midfield, something we see from him quite a bit. So I will ask you, and not to put you on the spot, what do you foresee happening in Super Bowl 56?
So I want to say that I expect Zach Taylor to be a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time, I keep thinking back to that Super Bowl between the Rams and the Patriots, and we saw both Sean McVay and Bill Belichick.
Please don't make us watch another Super Bowl quite
that one was not fun. But yeah, they both had a lot of fourth down punts, field goals, 4th and shorts especially. So I'm wondering if McVay will learn from that, or if he'll kind of look at it as being confident in thinking or knowing, however you want to look at it, that he has the better team, and kind of gonna trust his defense in this one. Based on the season, though, like I said, Sean McVay, while he is only a couple spots worse than Zach Taylor has had many more really good aggressive goes on 4th down that aren't just 4th and 1s like McVay has, that a lot of coaches are coming around to these days.
We shall see. We'll patiently await. Another Coach Ranking show in the books. As always, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to follow EdjSports on all social media platforms to get in on the conversation. Like and subscribe to our YouTube page as well. And we'll be presenting our 2021 Coaching Awards. So don't forget to come back on Thursday, February 10th to see who is crowned the EdjSports Coach of the Year. We'll see you then.